Good morning, everyone. My name is Kike, your host today on the podcast White Reflections by Hadufe. White Reflections by Hadufe is a podcast that delves into modern day life complexities and social issues. As you all know, what we try to do on the show is we try to bring people with real life experiences and sometimes experts to come educate us and talk to us about, certain life issues and, their experiences. Perhaps somebody going through something similar can, benefit from it. Today we shall be talking about something very, very important, the mother tongue as a tool for cultural awakeness. I have noticed personally that in our society today, a number of parents do not teach their children the native language. Not even a number. Many parents, many children out there cannot even speak their native language. I do not know why that is. I have discovered that for some reason, some of these children do not even have a knowledge of where they come from and where, their roots and, their tradition. And today I've brought experts who would be talking to us about some of these issues, why some of these things are, prevalent in the society, and steps that we can take as parents to, curb or perhaps, put a stop to some of those things. To my left here is Angela Robin, and then to my right is Toyosi Abraham Kati. They have many feathers to their cap, and they're going to be introducing themselves. Thank you so much, and I hope you would enjoy this interview as we go on. Thank you. Angela Robin, thank you. Thanks for coming.
It's a pleasure.
Toyosi Abraham Kati. I hope that's the right pronunciation.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. So, Angela Robin, I'll start with you. Please, can you tell our viewers who you are exactly and what you do?
Okay, my name is Angela Robin. I'm an associate professor of English language, currently with Leeds City University. I am a British Council Health examiner. I'm also the immediate past head of the Department of English and Literary Studies, as well as the Department of Performing Arts and Film Studies. I'm a passionate art lover. I'm a creative director. I'm a playwright. And I also hold the title of Akoni Udua. I am passionate about culture, especially amongst young people. And of course, I'm a YouTuber. I have a YouTube channel, Double Narratives with Dr. Hanji, where we pick on societal issues and discuss. Prevalent, of course, very core to those issues is at the center of this generation, and transcending the nest and carrying the cultural baggage along and not using it and not losing it in the process. So I'm thrilled to be here and having discussed with you.
Thank you so much. Me. You look so beautiful, by the way. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
So I'll come to you.
Oh, yeah.
Toyosi.
Yeah, thank you very much. Like you said, I'm Toyosi Abraham Kati, a mother, lover of children, an advocate of for language like Mrs. Robinson and Angela. And what I do majorly is I'm a subtitle service provider in the Nollywood. So I work on so many Yoruba movies, translating them to English. And now I'm currently the brand ambassador of Anti-Toyosi Akomolede, a brand that deals with instilling Yoruba language, bringing passion into Yoruba language. What many people thought, is not touch, is what we are doing now, promoting now, advocating now to the world, even to expatriates in Nigeria and mostly children in the diaspora. So that is what I do majorly.
Thank you very much. I love the fact that you used the word touche. And I was going to come to you anyways, Angela, because of course, looking at you, you look touche. Do you speak Yoruba, by the way?
Perfectly.
Okay. So you know now that, being able to speak Yoruba doesn't mean you're Raz or you're not touche. Okay, so thank you very much. And I was going to, start with you. I studied English. And one of the courses I took back then was performing arts. And I do remember that it was one of the best moments for me in the university because at some point we had to stage a play. It was about Hare Kurumi. And, we really delved into the Yoruba culture, how, Hare Kurumi was a warrior and all of those things. And I do remember a particular song that we sang, when his body was being taken, it was like a positional song. Yeah, a dirge. Yes, thank you. And, till date, I would still sing it.
With goosebumps.
Baba wada haori Hare Kurumi da haori. Some of those things, they were highlights for me when I was in the university. But we don't get to have that anymore. And I do believe it's due to the fact that modern parents consider themselves woke. And then they think that, being able to speak your native language would sort of affect the English language in some ways. I do not know, maybe the diction, the accent, and all of that. What's your take on that, Angela?
For starters, no language is better than another. Every language is used for communicative purposes, and as long as the language performs that, then it is supreme. So Yoruba language is not better than English. English is not better than Yoruba language. It's just a language. Now, I have to say that the awareness for theatre is still very much entrenched in the universities. I can tell you that I headed the Department of Performing Arts for over 6 years, and I can tell you for a certainty that the theatre is still alive. But the orientation about language, the indigenous language, and passing it on, and the fear in parenting are quite glaring in our society. And I don't want to pick it up from the peripheral. Let's go down to how did we get here?
How did we get here?
And I think it's not this generation's problem. I think it must have been the generation before ours. At the advent of a lot of contemporary exposure, now people feel that the English language is the language of the world. They are not wrong, I have to say. And that because of that, there has to be a mastery, a level of competence for children. Not only that, that is the lingua franca, and that means you have to have a level of proficiency to function even in Nigeria. And not only that, it's the language of international education. And so if you want your children to have good education, you are afraid that if they don't master the proficiency, then there might be a problem, and there will be. But what people feel...
There will be?
There will be. There will be. We all want to take a trip outside the country, and we all need to have at least some level of competence in the English language. Now, but what they don't understand is when children are growing, they have what we call a language acquisition device. It makes them capable of picking up over 15 languages simultaneously and perfectly. So you do not really need to force a child to learn just one or to achieve mastery in competence in one, because they have the ability to achieve competence in so many languages simultaneously. But the prestige status of English language, which cuts across every vein of Nigeria, is what they want to deal with. Is the language of prestige, the language of education, the language of the enlightened. So every parent wants a proficiency. I remember a dean of faculty of law at the time mentioned to me that he got a letter from his child's school that he doesn't speak English well. And he wrote them back and said, you teach him the English, I'll speak Yoruba to him. Of course, the young man is an engineer today. He achieved, of course, mastery at both levels. But we are all afraid that there has to be competence in English. But that fear has to be doused by the fact that you can allow them learn this language. Besides, it's the language of immediate environment, which makes picking up and mastering so easy. Even the parents that do not speak Yoruba to their children at home, they pick it up in the school, they pick it up on the streets, they pick it up with their friends. So it's a language of immediate environment, so definitely they will pick it up. So I think the fear needs to be allayed, that people should understand that both the indigenous language and the English language, no one is better. They both function in different capacities, in different social settings, and that parents should ease out and allow children master this. I have to also touch that another fear that parents have is simple. The English teachers in school, they might not be doing a perfect job. Exactly. So you feel that, let me help you at home, at the home front, so that at least your level of mastery of the language will be at least well enough, so that I don't leave you in the hands of some teachers who probably will ruin the competence or level of competence that the parents or the home front is trying to build. And I think it's there has to be perfection. The language goes through different phases towards perfection of learning. So I think that the remedy to all this seemingly language chaos is to understand that no language is greater than the other, and every language carries a cultural baggage. And if you are deprive a child of learning a language, you have deprived the child of a culture. Mm-hmm. So I think we can at par expose them both to the English language and its culture, and of course the Yoruba language and its culture.
But of course, I want to ask, what language would you recommend you teach your child first? What language? Because for me, if a child is not, very fluent in speaking English language, does it make that child any lesser than?
No, it just makes the child. It's just an indication that the child has not been exposed to the language well enough. Okay. It's just that simple.
And does it affect the child later on in future in terms of?
No, at the education,
self-esteem and confidence.
No. I'm certain they always speak it up at some point.
Okay.
If we cast our minds back, the poorest of English speakers when we're in primary schools, they are so fluent now.
No.
They have, they've picked it up as they go.
Exactly.
Okay. I want to cite an example of my very self.
Okay.
Before I could speak English out, before I could say good morning, I was in SS2.
Wow.
I was in SS2. But the thing is, I can write English. I'm very good at spellings. I'm very good at whatever you say, I can comprehend. But to say good morning to you, I cannot. I couldn't. So that, I think I will relate it to how I raised my children. I remember then their dad said, until from 0 to 5, we brought them up in English. Nothing to dilute it. Immediately they were 5, we introduced Yoruba to them. Now they can read, they can write, they can do tonation, they can do Ami Yoruba, they can do anything. And now even I didn't know what Professor was saying when I was still raising this case, that children are capable of learning about 15 languages simultaneously. We didn't even know that, because now when they got to the university, they had to learn Latin, because 2 of them are medical students. They are learning Latin, they have to learn Spanish, they have to learn French. Three different languages. And now some of their friends are having issues in UCH. They are in UI, they are in medical school in UCH. And these children, when they are introduced to patients, and the patients happen to be an illiterate who cannot, and your professor is not ready to know whether the person does not speak English or does not speak. All they want is relate with your patient and get the best out of your patient. Now most of these children, because of we don't want you to speak your indigenous language, they are having that problem at this stage. They are having that problem. So I would say, like Professor said, no language is better than the other. We started with English. Immediately they became 5. Once you are 5, you start speaking Yoruba. And we speak Yoruba fluently in my family.
What kind of Yoruba do you speak?
Yoruba Gidinio.
Okay.
Okay. Because if I cannot, I work on movies. If I cannot comprehend the Yoruba dialect, I do epic.
So you won't be able to translate?
There is no way you can do that. There is no way. You owe Yoruba astamo, gbogbo akanlo ede. All those things. You have to comprehend. It's not that some of these words you don't translate them literally. You must be in the understanding of what the person is saying, so that you don't confuse. Because when I subtitle movies, I don't see it as Yoruba people watching or reading my subtitles. I see foreigners learning. So I put myself in the position of a foreigner. So when I'm subtitling, I do everything not to let my audience be lost. So that, maybe you are saying something now, all of a sudden you say, Erin oki jegbo ninu ewe, and if you say elephant does not eat leaves in the bush, the person will be like, how did we get to elephant? Do you understand what I'm saying? So
you need to translate it in such a way that your viewers,
they are not lost. They are not lost. So you need to be in the understanding of the language very well. So I think it is part of those things that help me in my profession, because Like I told you, I got to SS2 before I could say good morning. I remember my younger brother, you know, we were like that in my family because we were raised by illiterate parents. So I remember a younger brother of mine, a mate, a schoolmate beat him, and he wanted to report to the teacher. Right. But because they have said vernacular speaking is prohibited, he didn't know how to express himself. You know, by the time they got to the teacher, and you know, he was saying, this one, beats him. You know, very funny scenario. So, you know, they just, by the time the teacher laughed, the teacher said, please just go, because, you know, that was who we were. But thank God for who we are now, and to the glory of God, I'm benefiting from Yoruba language.
Thank you very much. I wasn't raised by illiterate parents, but traditional, you know, rooted parents. They aren't illiterate, of course, they're still around anyways, but very, very rooted in their culture. And I remember growing up, I mean, in the mornings, when I greet my dad, he goes, Agbeke ade, Oma Ashaleke odi, Oma ale bauta, Oma lelele aleba, Oma baton aron fishi, Oma ofomi oka, show me where, Oma ofomi where, show me oka, Oma lagulu. I can relate. Because I'm so in tune with my culture and I know every single thing about it. But can I say that about myself as a parent to my children? No, I wouldn't lie about that. I mean, I don't think I've said that to them this year, even though they have Orikis, you know. And that's a sort of, you know, really, it saddens my heart, to be honest. And I at some point, I think I caused it, you know. And I'm saying this truthfully because I know a lot of parents did that as well. I want to ask you, Angela, do you think it would be better if our children were taught in their native language, other than in school, other than...
All right. Now, the national language policy on education is straightforward in that. From at the early stages of the primary school, the first 6 years, it's stated clearly that a pupil must be taught in their mother tongue. Unfortunately, that policy is only theoretical. Even the policy identifies that there are a lot of challenges to that. Reading materials are not translated in Yoruba. So how do you teach them when there are no materials, no textbooks in these subjects in Yoruba? That's one. Two, the functionality of a language and it's in its experience and exposure. The exposure in science and technology in Nigeria, in physics, in chemistry, in biology is still minimal. And so we do not even have vocabularies that is apt enough to describe those words. So there has to be a careful study in order to find correlations in Yoruba for these nomenclatures. I have a friend, we met once at a linguistic training school in Cote d'Ivoire and later in New York. His project right now that is being funded internationally is translating biology textbooks and topics into Yoruba.
Into Yoruba.
And he's doing outstandingly well and is getting huge support. So I foresee that in the next 10 years, modern biology will have a Yoruba
version.
And I think that would be
a
landslide breakthrough.
Landslide.
So the hindrance to teaching in the mother tongue is there and clear. Now, with a country of over 500 languages, and what do? How do you teach these pupils in our communities, tucked away somewhere almost unknown, when there are no materials in their native languages? Now, so what is the way forward? The way forward lies on the lap of the teachers. Now, you can introduce that language to them as best as you can, despite the fact that there are no so much written materials on this subject area. I've been teaching in the university for close to 18 years, and I can tell you for a certainty that sometimes when you say one Yoruba word while teaching, you will see their eyes open, up in illumination and understanding. Comprehension is in a new dimension when you tell them one word about what you're trying to teach them in English language. Because when you teach someone in a learned language, you are presented two tasks as against one, which is learning. First, the comprehension of a language, and then the comprehension of the topic. So when we are learning in English, we are doing two things at the same time. First, we need to understand the language, and then the content is being taught. So two tasks as one. But when you teach them in the language they are familiar with, only one objective: understand what I'm teaching. You don't have a language barrier.
You don't have a language barrier.
So it's beautiful to know that we can achieve that. It's I find it quite. I find it quite a beautiful revelation and consoling to know that people are taking steps to make that happen. But it can't happen all in one day. It's going to take years for us to be able to achieve a fully mother tongue classroom. Now, the second challenge lies on the lap of the students. We teach them in their mother tongue. They do understand, but they will write exams in English language. So it's a challenge where there has to be a massive balance.
A balance.
Comprehension, interpretation, and being able to relate what you have comprehended in English.
In English.
Because you will write biology WAEC in Yoruba. You will have to write it. So even if I present to you a biology textbook in Yoruba, it will aid your comprehension of the subject matter, but you need to also have a mastery of the language in which you're going to write the examination.
But to cut you short, Angela, there are countries who teach in their native language.
We have not gotten there.
Okay.
We're talking of an immediate situational reality, context reality.
Okay.
The context reality in Nigeria is such that we have not gotten to a point where we examine in Yoruba language, or we certify national exams.
So I think in France, do they write in?
I'm not very sure, but I know that research was conducted why Chinese students do so well when they study in the diaspora, and it was found that they had an application that helps them translate materials into their mother tongue.
Mother tongue.
So they have a balance between trying to learn in English and of course
their mother tongue.
So it's achievable. I'm sure a lot of colleagues throughout the country across all levels of education are beginning to break new grounds to introduce as subtly as possible the mother tongue into the classroom for better, because I think you have not achieved anything as a lecturer or as a teacher if you leave the classroom and leave them hanging.
And they do not understand what you've taught.
As teachers, we clutch onto every straw to make sure that subject matter is passed across. So I know that a lot of colleagues do that from time to time. I don't need to tell you. I remember there was a time I was teaching a sandwich class. It's quite humorous. Now, sandwich are teachers, the grade 1 teachers who come back to the university for a degree. And I went on teaching. And then I noticed there was an elderly woman at the back. And I was like, Kilo Shele. She was like, tell you something, yeah, no, you do. And I was like, okay, let's do it again. Let's back up. So I said, oh yeah, what is social linguistics? I'll never forget what social linguistics, language and society. And I began to tell them the concepts in Yoruba. Those nomenclatures I was saying in English, I started telling them Yoruba. And when I finished, my class was relaxed. They were happy. They understood. And the next week when I said, oh yeah, they spoke back to me in English.
In English.
They understood.
They understood.
So it's just achieving a balance, and we're getting there. You're taking a step by putting up programs like this. Every lecturer, every teacher who listens to this joins the chain. And when we begin to connect like that, researchers, teachers, policy makers, we begin to connect. And before we know it, we're at the point where, one, people must be proud of their language. Two, they can understand that, yes, I can learn in my language and I can also learn in English language and achieve a fantastic balance. And then, of course, researchers are out there making sure that there is a balance between mother tongue learning and, of course, foreign language learning.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. That's quite catchy, and I pray and I hope we'll get there, as soon as possible. So I'm coming to you, Toyosi. I saw your, what's it called, online?
Auntie Toyosi Akomolede.
Auntie Toyosi Akomolede. Please, what inspired that?
Yeah, well.
And do you only teach children in diaspora? Do you teach?
Well, the reason everything is born out of vision, and, maybe I should just give you a short introduction of the genesis of Auntie Toyosi Akomolede. I started a Bible study class with children in the diaspora. Many of the parents abroad have these fears of how would I raise these children, in this kind of society. So maybe all this Japa syndrome. I have many parents who say, oh, we want to, because I coordinate my children's church in Avestas International Christian Center. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So many of these parents, they still want us to continue with these children. So I just devised the means, okay, we're going to be having a, just once a week class. That's how I started in January. And coupled with the fact that I work on movies, and my vision is anytime you watch movies that are subtitled, if you are Yoruba, I want you to learn an English word, no matter what. And if you are a foreigner, I want you to, I will do it in a very simple way that you must be able to learn something. I have many fans abroad, and it's been awesome. So these two things come together, and a parent just thought, auntie, I better let me call my Yoruba ni. I was like, how is that my business? I studied mathematics. I don't know anything about language. That's why I'm really, really impressed with the way Professor has been saying a lot of things about language. So
language.
When I was like, I thought about it, then the name just came. I just wrote this graphic artist, Auntie Toyosi, come on lady, let's start something. Before you knew it, everything, the thing just, I have just a few for now, because I started in the promotion started in
Sorry
February.
to cut you short. How do you teach them?
On Zoom.
On Zoom, okay.
Basically, it's online. So
most of them are out of the country?
They are out of the country. And if you want to do it, maybe you're an expatriate here, or you have your children here, but you want them. I have a parent who wants her children in Lagos, wants to, she wants them to enroll in the class. It's basically on Zoom, so your location matters not. All I need to do is be in class with your children. And the few we have now, they are from the United States, and like I told you, we just started, but I know the passion is driving me to ensure that Yoruba becomes a notable language, I'm a fan of, in fact, I'm trying to pick up some courses in language now to bring a kind of certification into what I am doing. So
that's beautiful, and the children, have they been faring?
Oh yes,
are they excited to learn the language?
Yes, okay. The excitement is there. Okay. The excitement is there. There is a parent. She has not, because the child will be starting during summer. I have not taught her child. Maybe she just checked my status every now and then. She introduced 3 children. I was worried. I said, Mom, I've not taught your
So what
child.
do you teach them basically?
Yoruba, he's in 3 levels. We have some that deals with just communication, just ekaro, ekason, sheti jeon, motiyo, all this. And it goes to the level of writing. So I would say beginners, intermediate, then advanced. Okay. So the advanced is, if you want to go to the level of, that is for the expatriate, you want to be doing business transactions in Yoruba, and you don't want to be sold and be given change, so that's how it is. But for now, the few ones I have, they are beginners, they are little children. We just start with I cannot even start with alphabets with them. I cannot, because except you want to do writing, then we start. Handwriting can be very difficult. So we start from alphabets. But these ones, it's communication. You want to wear Mama Efe Bawi, and it's amazing. My immediate younger brother is in Atlanta, and anytime we are on call with the family, he will never allow you to speak English to the children. It amazes me. So, and you know what, Kike, one of the saddest things I've seen in Ibadan, Nigeria, is one boy, he couldn't write correct English, and he couldn't write correct Yoruba.
The confusion is from where, Angela?
I don't know. Okay, now, there are different language skills. we have what we call the productive skills and, of course, the receptive skills. The receptive skills powers the productive skills. Now, the receptive skills is listening and reading. You take in a language. And, of course, the productive skill is speaking and writing. So your proficiency in one powers the other. And that's why when we're teaching any language, first of all, they learn to listen to us, and they learn to read before they start writing, and of course, before they start speaking. Now, when you have a problem with the receptive skills, and I think maybe that problem might have been with a lot of parents who are not even competent in the English language and enforce it on their children.
Enforce it on the children.
So the competence is low, and then they are learning Yoruba language by the side, and it's not being reinforced in school because they are not writing it, their playmates are not saying it. Then the productive skill will also be poor. So I think teaching a child a language has to be very intentional, especially when it gets to the level of having to write. It has to be very, very intentional. So teachers must teach right, both for English language, and they must teach right, both for Yoruba language. I know that generally in teaching, the writing skill usually lags behind a bit until later when the level of proficiency begins to, it happened to all of us. We find that we had to work hard to be able to pen down things flawlessly. Yes. And so I think for that particular child, what has happened is the learning has been incomplete on both languages. And because we have different types of bilinguals. We have those we call incipient bilinguals. Now, incipient bilinguals is what the Yorubas will refer to as Obotatata. And it's a transitional stage of bilingualism, which simply means that you can proceed from your Tatata, you can become very proficient in that language so that you will go dada. Now, so children usually are incipient because they are picking up languages and they are in a transition process. So it's only an agbalagba, we say they are fossilized already. Oftentimes, if it's bombastic grammar, they will bombastic the grammar forever. And if it's the bombastic Yoruba, they oftentimes might bombastic it forever. Please, I use that very humorously. Now, so that means that children are, at that incipient level, and they can. And I always say this, that sometimes I remember there was a time when I was at an event, and the anchor kept apologizing for, saying some things in a certain way, the traditional Nigerian English version. And he kept apologizing, saying, I did not study English. At some point, after the program, we had a break, and I called him aside. I said, you need to stop the apology. Now, the reason why you need to stop the apology is that just like we have British English, American English, Canadian English, we also have Nigerian English. And it has been studied by scholars. It is branded Nigerian English. And what do we mean by Nigerian English? It is this version of English that has a native language flavor.
Exactly. And I mean, you can understand it anyway, so why bother?
There is no one-to-one correlation of words in every language, and culture is different. I remember that I did a research some time ago, and the research was on cognitive dissonance and the concept of language interference. And I had out some Yoruba proverbs, and I had students try to translate. And I'll never forget, one of the proverbs is Ori Okere Kokolawo. The head of the rodent is hard on the plate. All manner of interpretation. But don't forget that once you say the closest interpretation in English is a word is enough for the wise. But when you say a word is enough for the wise, you have left the Ori Okere Kokolawo. That is the cultural relevance in the Yoruba language. Because it's the intro of that proverb that makes the proverb a proverb.
I'm telling you, very rich language.
They also have fairies. Creatures that live in flowers. Just like we have creatures that live in trees. This is true. Because it's just a culture. So they can understand that if they have fairies, we have gummies. That live in trees. We have egbere. Don't we? We do. And so
we do.
Cinderella transmits a culture. We only need to transmit our culture through our stories. Because if you listen to Chinese stories, folk tales, you'll find that they teach about the moon and creatures that live in the moon, because that is what they believe within their value system. So I think every story, teaches a culture.
A
So we should just
culture.
tell our stories more. So they can balance it out with the Cinderella
And
and
the
the Hercules.
Lilith and-
Which Hercules is a Greek mythology. So we need to tell stories of our mythologies too, so that they can learn creation of the. I used to tell my students that the Bible has a story for creation. We Yorubas have a
story for creation. We need to tell them about Shango.
And
we need to tell them about Oya.
how Oduduwa descended on a chain with a cock and the sand in his hand. And I'll tell them, he spread the sand and put the cock on it. And the cock started, spreading out the sand. And I'll tell them, anywhere you find eels now, it's at the point when the cock made moles. And whenever you find valleys, that's when the cock, went digging. And when you find rivers, the cock never got there. So and they'll chuckle and laugh.
So that's the Yoruba version of creation.
Every culture has a version of creation. It's not just the Bible. And so, because we have our gods and goddesses, and so we have a version of how we came to being. And don't forget that our mythologies are actually philosophical narratives explaining how things are. And we have lines on our hands. Why are some women pretty? We'll say the hell spent time on you, holding you, before you came. And then we'll say that we believe in destiny. And we'll have
Anyomo. What's Anyomo? Destiny.
So you have before you come to live it.
Come to the knowledge of it.
So it's
very deep culture.
Deep culture. Deep, beautiful culture. Like every
other culture.
And I think that should be explored. There just has to be balance in our mindset. And like I was saying, the world has become virtual. The world is different. I can tell you that most sincerely. In teaching, in exposure, in belief system, value system is changed. So I think a major recipe or solution to this is also to go virtual with our language. Like you're doing. I think you're doing a fantastic job. I salute you. And so we need to go virtual because this generation believes more in what they see online. Because they live online. So I think there has to be a lot of leverage on that. Also
social media.
Yes, social media must also teach language. I remember that I've forgotten her name. She's a professor in the University of Ibadan. Once when she spoke about the Yoruba language, it was a video clip. A clip I kept moving from my, eventually I had to put it on my hard drive because I was like, this is a keeper. She's in 2 minutes. She spoke eloquently about why we need to value what we call a language and our culture. And why it's very important that learning can be in both and will be absolutely fine. Yes, fantastic. In theory it seems more easy, but it's just a step at a time and we'll be there. Lockdown made magic happen. All of us are on social media. All of us are online. So there also can be, a major breakthrough in, of course, the representation of all languages, not just Yoruba languages online, so that the young people see it. They see that it's actually there. And I have to say that a lot of awareness to the language has also converted comedy skills and this and that they now find right on their palm and they can see. Because I know there are some words that has become very popular, Yoruba words, just because they find it all over social media. So that's just also an avenue that can be explored. So that, because in the reality of a young person now, learning is virtual.
It is absolutely, and I agree with you. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on the show. So very quickly, Angela, and I'll come to you, to Yossi. Please, I'd like to know your title. What's it about? You haven't said much about that.
Yes, I haven't, because in fact I have been chided severally that whenever I go for events, I don't tell people so they can introduce me properly. Well, I was just doing my thing. And there is the Yoruba Heritage Leadership Group in Nigeria. And before me, a lot of other women, governor's wife, has gotten the title. And like I told you, I'm a lover of culture. And I will do anything to bring culture to the face of my students. So we'll do programs. We invite a lot of veterans in the industry, a lot of people who, of course, propagate culture and bring them in. And then in some place, in some corner in Ile-Ife, there was a meeting of the board and my name popped up and the award was presented and the title was presented to me 2 years ago as the Akoni Obirin.
Akoni Obirin. So what does that mean, please?
Okay, that means that you are an ambassador of culture and you have been brave enough to project culture. And of course, that has given me a lot of platform to also be able to represent in a lot of cultural events. The next one that is coming up is going to be in Ile-Ife on the Onis Palace on the 18th of May this month. Not only that, it's something I did. There was an initiative I started. I called it the Angela Robin Play Distribution Project. Now, the objective is to have people who are wealthy buy my plays, and then we distribute it to secondary school pupils. Now, the focus is there is entrepreneurship in the arts. I think a little bit of bias has come to the arts, and you find a lot of pupils in the sciences getting a lot of bodies to sponsor them, cowbell, mathematics competition, literary world in the arts being, a bit short-changed, because I think the orientation is what do we do with you? But now the play project is to pull secondary school pupils together to function in different capacities in the theatre: costume and makeup, play directing, set design, stage management, speech and acting, and then of course the actors and actresses, and then you put them all together, exerting their strengths in different capacities and being trained in the process, so they understand that this is entrepreneurial. You can actually feed after studying English language. Those things that people will say, what do you do with English language?
With English language?
It's in the core heart, and there's so many things you could do. What you're doing really is in the core English
exactly. Translation and all of that.
Core language. And so they can know right from the secondary school that I can actually be a director. Costume and makeup can earn me money. There's something called set design, like this is a set.
Yeah. Yes.
People work on, you have seen massive set designs across the world, and it's all about creativity and training, and some of them just have it in them, but it's locked in because nobody's looking to that direction. Exactly. And so that's another initiative I'm doing in that capacity. So we're going on a tour in my capacity as Akoni Biriodu to sensitize.
Where, when, you should include us.
I think so.
I will.
You should include us.
I will, so that this sensitive, I think steps like this eventually will connect and snowball into something fantastic.
Yes.
And so as we're talking about the global virtual world, we should be also talking about the global virtual reality of languages. And that is here, is ours, and it has come to stay. How many of us want to children, and we realize that the English language is not doing enough, and you have to speak Yoruba.
Exactly.
So
I do that. I do that a lot.
Yoruba, so they can, all of us
reset
went
their
to schools
brains
with the phrase "Not your money, don't she?" All of us.
Yes.
And so
and that kept us in check.
Your money, don't she, is heavy.
It's heavy to the lineage, your name, your reputation,
your culture, and everything. It's handing you over a torch. And that it has to be on, and that you are just a version of what we stand for as a people, and don't forget that.
Our parents didn't need to say much.
It's different from be good.
Exactly.
That's too shallow.
Now you are being language by us.
Be good is not saying anything. It
It's deep.
It's deep.
But trust me, to an English person, be good also carries weight. You are being biased because
that's not
means so much to you.
To an English person, that's the culture.
That's the culture.
So of course it should carry weight.
It does.
That's our
it does
culture.
It for us.
It does it for us. So anywhere you are, you remember that mom said "Rántí ọmọ ẹni tí ìwọ ṣe."
We always
you
remember.
just don't want to mess up.
There is a touch in my hand.
Exactly.
Yes. I can't toy with it,
I'm telling you, it's a very rich culture. So very quickly, I'm coming to you to say names, Yoruba names. I'm a culprit, to be honest. My last child, I wanted an English name. I do not know. Well, for me, it was basically because of the meaning of that name. Yes. But my husband wasn't so keen on the English thing, so he wanted a Yoruba name. And now we call her by the English name. And I do know a number of parents too who have kids. Yes. So I want to very much touch on that. Names.
Well, I do. Well, like you said, it depends on different families, Like my family, I'm blessed with 3 children. My husband, their dad, is from Togo. So that is where you have Abraham Kati. You could see that the
Okay,
name is
yes.
somehow. I'm an Ijisha woman. I'm from Elashe. Legbe Bukun. So when we gave them names, we gave them English names, we gave them Togolese names, we gave them Yoruba names. Fortunately, okay, my first daughter is Faith. She's a law student in UI. If you get to UI now, if you say, I'm asking for Faith,
Nobody will know.
nobody knows her. She's Ife. Ife Oluwapo. That's what my daughter bears in school. So when you are going to UI, be careful not to ask for Faith. Because
nobody would produce
nobody will know. In fact, all our friends, Ife, oh, your mommy is around, Ife.
And she did that
On our
Yes,
on her
own. But that's their other name anyway. She is Abraham Faith.
So she chose Ife.
She chose Ife. And you know, there are so many unique names. Like I told you, I relate with children a lot. There are some names, I'll be like, God. There is a woman in my children's church. If you miss a letter in the spirit, oh my God. I just pray she's listening to this. The name of the boy is Obafire Funwa. So that Obafi is not one high E in Yoruba. Imeji ló máa wà níbẹ̀. If you put one, you say ẹjọ́ mà ẹ bá wa tún kọ. On the parent level, you say ẹjọ́ ẹ bá wa tún kọ. Everybody knows that for her. And the other one is Kikidairesiwa. So those names, when you hear them,
they carry so much.
They carry. Even when we are doing naming ceremonies in my church, my pastor, you know, many people will start with Whitney. That's the first name they will. Pastor will say, what's the meaning of Whitney? Tell everybody. Let everybody know the meaning of this name. Even if it is biblical name, they expected you to have carried out
your research and know the meaning of that
because name. You know, even most of these names, they have influence on us.
Talking about that, you know, in Yoruba, naming is a version of our culture. We have a naming ritual, which is very core to who we are as a people. I'm not sure a lot of people still practice the Onireu, kind of thing.
They do.
I think it's some people still do. But the naming culture is very key within the Yoruba culture. We are particular about what names we give. Don't forget, names means lineage. So the name you bear represents.
Look at the Ayon.
Yes.
You just saw Ayon. You knew directly that there's your drum.
It represents your spiritual inclination. It says a lot.
About
names
you.
say a lot. Yes, westernization has done a lot to names. And of course, the slave trade also did a lot to names. Where you have the Coles, the Robins, and so you know the Williams, and so you know that well, slave trade. But then the core of who we are as a people is how we name children. So that's why I know that a lot of people still, you know, plug in there one Yoruba name or one Igbo name or one Hausa name, no matter how westernized they get, because they just don't want to lose a touch of that lineage.
Looking at the statistics, like I have like 130 children that I'm managing in church. I could say that about maybe 65 or 70% of them who are Yoruba or Igbo, they bear their indigenous names. So look at my daughter now. The other one, the second one also wanted to do Ife, but their Ifes are different. One is Ife Oluwapo, the first one. The second one is Ife Oluwani, because of the situation surrounding her birth. Because the first one was only 4.5 months when I conceived the
other one. Oh, okay, so that's done. That's a discussion for another time. We're running out of time. Oh, this has been really, really interesting. Thank you so much, Angela, for coming. Thank you, Toyosi, for coming. So something very quickly to leave our viewers with.
Love your language, learn your language. Let's keep it spreading, and we'll be fine.
Thank you so much, Toyosi.
That's just it. Please, let's embrace your language, especially Yoruba language, for which I'm an advocate.
Thank you very much. Thank you, viewers, for joining in. Till we see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Angela,
thank you so much.
Thank you.